Welcome to the Global Math Department. My name is Joe Bemis, and I will be your host tonight. Tonight, we're going to hear from Libo and Vanessa about some wonderful topics. Libo is going to tell us some snippets from some conferences that he's attended this year, and Vanessa is going to teach us some routines to leverage strengths and optimize learning in our classrooms. Tonight, we would like to have everybody introduce themselves in the chat window, telling us what you teach, where you teach, what your Twitter handle is. And we're having a little fun with degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit. So go ahead and throw that in. We got another Celsius from Bangkok. So we're going to have to look up that equation. Before I introduce our speakers, let me explain how these meetings work. These meetings are recorded and are available within 24 hours after the meeting ends. To view the recording, you can use the same URL you used to get here tonight. The global math community prides itself on being friendly and supportive. The chat room is available for topical and general conversation throughout the meeting. I'll do my best to try and catch questions for the presenters, so don't worry if the presenter won't notice your question in the chatter. Tonight, we're going to start off with Libo, who is in New York, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Libo and let him introduce himself, give us a little bio, and tell us about all these great conferences and ideas that he gathered for us. So Libo, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, welcome, and thank you for being here. My name is Libo Valencia. I'm a math teacher at Horace Greeley High School. I'm also an adjunct lecturer at CUNY Lehman College. I've been teaching for 12 years. During my career, I had the opportunity to teach everything from remedial algebra classes to calculus. And tonight, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very happy because I would love to share how the Global Math Department has impacted my teaching over this past year. Oh, and by the way, my Twitter handle is at Mr. Valencia 24. So the question is, like, I have a short presentation in how has the Global Math Department impacted my teaching. So to be completely honest, I learned about the Global Math Department probably a little more than a year ago. And then since then, I started attending webinars. I watched probably like all of the secondary math webinars that we had over the past year. And I also watched some of the ones that were there from before. And through the webinars, I have learned and connected with some amazing educators. This is just like a small sample, but I've learned so much over the past year. So when I was putting together the presentation and I was thinking about like how has the Global Math Department impacted my teaching, I thought of like three different ways. So the three different ways that I thought about were like engaging my students, assessing my students, and allowing my students to like math play. So on the first way of engaging, over this past year, as many other teachers, my school was working in a hybrid model. We started with most students remote and a few students in person. Well, right now is the complete opposite. We have a few students at home and most students are in person, thank God. So to engage my students, especially the students that were remote, one of the things that I started using a lot was the Annotate feature on Zoom, which allowed students to like make their thinking visible to me, and not only to me but also to their classmates. So this was a fantastic way to get the students that were at home to participate and share, and then older students could see what their classmates were thinking. Another great way to like engage my students in class, regardless of like the level, was using which one does not belong. This was fantastic. This like saved my life, especially at the beginning of the school year in like the morning classes where the students were like so quiet. My remote students at the beginning of the year will all like their cameras were on. I could see that they were taking notes, but the classroom felt very passive, and that's not really my style. I wanted them to participate. I wanted them to talk, and I started using like which one does not belong. I got some from like the website in the whatever topic we were covering, but then I started using my daughter's Legos on Star Wars, and this was fantastic because then I couldn't get the students to stop talking. And it was great. After doing this for like a couple of weeks, the students were like more comfortable to talk and then to participate in math conversations. So using which one does not belong was fantastic. Another feature that I use on Zoom was the poll feature. This, to be honest, didn't take as long as I thought. I honestly took a slide of my presentation and I turned the question that I already had on the presentation into like a poll question. That way, the students that were at home were like not only like there was like an expectation for them to participate, and most of the time I made it anonymous, so they were like more willing to share, and sometimes I didn't. And this way, the students at home and the students that were in person were able to like participate. My goal was for them to have like a similar experience. I wanted the students that were remote to have like the same opportunity to participate than the students that were in person. Also using visual patterns. This was fantastic. Again, I teach right this year. I'm teaching like an advanced pre-calc class, a geometry class, an essential like algebra 2 class, and I use all the strategies with all my students, and it was like just as effective. The visual patterns was like a very good strategy to get them started. And again, keeping in mind that some of my students were remote, some of my students were in person, I will present the students with like a pattern and ask them like, okay, like what will number 4 look like? For the students that were in class, I will walk around and see what they did. And then for the students that were at home, I asked them to like put their paper like next to the computer. It didn't always work. Sometimes like something happened, but this was a great way to like create some community. Like the students at home were participating, the students in person were participating, and it was just a great way to like engage students. And in one of the webinars that I attended, I think it was by Dr. Wills, she talked about making students think invisible, and like this was a great way to like engage students and have them participate. So like that was the first thing that I wanted to talk about, engaging. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, especially this year, was like how to assess students. I think that many math teachers around the world this year had the constant thought of like, how do I assess my students properly, right? So how do I assess them in a way that the work that they're presenting is authentic? So I still gave quizzes and I still gave tests, and I had to make like so many versions of it, like test A, B, C, and D. But a different approach to like assessing my students was giving them some like level of choice and giving them something like a Desmos Art project. I did like 3 Desmos Art projects on like the second half of the school year. One was like when we finished rational functions, one when we finished conic sections, and then one like at the end of the school year. I tried to be very flexible with the instructions. I asked my students, okay, like use at least like 6 different types of equations, 6 different types of functions, but no restriction on the number of equations. And I was really like blown away by the quality of their work. Like I was expecting them to, use some of the equations, use at least like one of each, but the work that they did was amazing. I think that part of it was giving them some choice. I told them like, pick your favorite movie, pick your favorite character, pick your favorite book. So they got to do math on something that they were passionate about, and it really showed on the result. These are a couple of examples from like some of my pre-calc students, and it was great. They also had like a really good time. They were like you could tell that they were very proud of their work. So like the Desmos Art project was fantastic. As I mentioned, I'm also teaching a geometry class. There was one day where they were supposed to have a quiz on parallelograms, and I could tell by their faces that they had spent like way too much time online. So I told them, all right, let's do something different. Get up, go around your house, take a picture of a parallelogram, and then like take some time, walk around, take a picture of a rectangle, anything that you find that resembles a parallelogram. So the students took a little break from the computer, got a picture, came back, and then Mr. Rollins said, now what do we do with the picture? So then I said, post it upload it to Geogebra, and then using the coordinates that you get in Geogebra, prove or disprove that is actually a parallelogram. And it was like only one question. My original quiz had more questions on it, but this was like more authentic. They got to walk around, they took a picture of something that they wanted, and then they work on it. So it was, again, they were more engaged. They got to play with the technology, and they got to show each other like, oh, this is the picture that I took. And it was just like really nice, very positive. This, if you haven't done this, you need to do the Pringles and Circles. This you could pretty much do in any class. I've done it in algebra and geometry, in algebra 2, in pre-calc, in calc. Basically, you ask the students to like create, to make up a circle using Pringles. There's like several tutorials online. I've posted some of the instructions for this lesson on my Twitter account. But basically, they make the Pringles, they make the circle, and then once they're ready, I ask them to take a picture of it, put it on Desmos, and then come up with the equation for that particular circle. So again, it's only like one question, but it's more authentic, and the students have a blast doing this. I did it last year, well, like before the pandemic, and it was great. And I also did it this year. So some students, the students were responsible for getting the Pringles, and thank God they all did. And it was just a great project. They were very happy. They had a lot of fun, and it's something that I will highly recommend. So assessing my students in a different way when I'm giving them like some choice is also something that I picked up from the global math department. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is this year in particular, I was making an effort to allow my students to do some math play. So I'm teaching it's like a pre-calculus / calculus class. And one of the things that I kept on doing was anytime we did like a new unit on like a calc unit, I will look for a Geogebra like GIF. You can find them online. You can find them on Twitter. And this like speaks volumes. You show them this and it gets their attention. They get to share it on their social media. So it's really positive. They get to visualize what we're learning. This was an example of like an optimization, the open top box with you cut out the corners. So we actually after we did this, we did the lesson and they actually got to build their own like box with the maximum volume. So it was a lot of fun. Another one that we did recently was tracing the derivative. This was also fantastic because they got to play with it, and then I sent them the link for the Geogebra app so they can like try different functions, and it was just like a lot of fun. Instead of doing like a worksheet with like 10 different questions or 20 different questions, I send them the link to the Geogebra app, and then they can like make it. I could tell you from like seeing my students that they will do way more when they're playing with it than if it was like a worksheet. As I mentioned before, my students are big Star Wars fans, like Mr. Valencia. Like, who doesn't like Star Wars? So like anytime I had an opportunity to make a connection between like Star Wars and geometry, I did. I took advantage of it, and my students loved it. This was like the do now question when we were like introducing trigonometric functions for the first time. So I related to Ahsoka Tano, and then like, what's your favorite polygon? And of course, Qui-Gon is there. So this is just fun. The students remember this. They like it. They talk about it. It like sticks. Using memes is also fantastic. Like nowadays, like in their social media, they see memes all the time. This was one from like my pre-calc class where like there was a divergent series. So this was funny. They do remember this. If you have like one slide in your presentation that, you know, brings a smile, it makes them think about something else. It makes them like, they'll talk about it later on. And then more recently, I got this from like one of my colleagues, a math Jedi, Ms. Chris Carlson. After our students learned how to differentiate using the limit definition, we gave them a license to derive. So this was, I know it sounds like, oh, that's easy, but it's really nice. The students like it. And you're doing something different that they really appreciate. So in conclusion, if I had to tell you like what have I learned from like the global math department over this past year, is like three main things. First, I feel that attending the global math department webinars has helped me to like adapt my teaching practices to better serve my students in a hybrid world. And I picked up like a lot of new tricks. Also, be like more willing and open to try new things. I'm gonna be honest, that was hard for me as like a math teacher, and like as a teacher, you want to be in control of everything, but you have to let go. You have to be willing to try new things. Sometimes it doesn't work, which is okay because now you know it doesn't work. But it's definitely something that is worth it. And I think teaching like in a hybrid model during the pandemic, like that is the time. Like if you don't try new things, then when would you do it? And then the last thing is like be open-minded to like new ideas. Honestly, I attended some webinars and I look at the idea and I say, okay, this is a fantastic idea, but that wouldn't work for me. Or like it will work for like my geometry class, but not for my pre-calculus class. So those are the three things: adapt, be willing to try new things, and be open-minded. And thank you very much.
Hey, Libo, I've got a couple questions if you will take a few minutes to answer.
Of course.
First of all, somebody wants to know, Abby wants to know, how long did you give them for the Desmos Art project?
So it was 2 class periods. So this was the Desmos Art project was after we finished our section on like conic sections. So they did get to practice the material like prior to the Desmos Art project. And then we had like a day that it was like a half day. So we started then, I gave them instructions, we walk around, and I could tell you that the best tech support for students is like older students, because like there were things that I didn't know how to do on Desmos that the students figure out while they were trying to do it. So I gave them like a class and a half. It was like a half day and then like an entire class period. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. If they need, again, I was like very flexible. So if they needed like an extra day, I wanted them to have fun and to practice the math. So to answer the question, it was like 2 days.
Okay. Was there a big learning curve for using this technology? Some of my students come into my classroom with limited use of technology.
So that's a great question. So many of my students use Desmos for the first time this year. So I will say that it's probably harder for us teachers to get used to the technology. I can tell you that the students will pick it up really fast. As long as we like set up the platform, and like I feel like that I'm comfortable with technology, but I didn't have all the answers. A lot of times they will say like, Mr. Valencia, how do I change the color of this? And I will like struggle, try to figure it out. And then like somebody will figure it out, and then they will share that. So like it was different levels. There were some students that I had from like previous years. So like that had done Desmos before, probably not at this level, but I could tell you that the students will be able to pick it up faster.
Okay. Another person wants to know if there's any way you would be willing to share the directions that you gave for the Desmos Art project.
Oh, of course. So I can add it to this presentation, and then I think we were thinking about doing like a PDF and sending it to everybody that attended the session. So of course, yes.
Okay. And let's see. I think that's it. And I just wanted to double check. Can you show them your Twitter handle again, just to make sure that we got it in the chat correctly?
Yeah, it was at Mr. Valencia 24.
All right. Thank you so much, Libo. That was awesome and a great introduction to the power of watching our webinars. So we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.